If you haven't
Perfect.
yet picked up the slide deck, we are posting it in the chat, so feel free to grab that there.
Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. So one other thing is that for the session, the microphones are muted, but we do encourage you to use the chat feature. Um, So I see a lot of you are already using that. You're introducing yourselves. We love that. Thank you for letting us know where you are joining us from. And some of you are putting your roles in there. So that's awesome. We love to see lots of different roles and different districts joining us for this. So again, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with us. All right. So let's get started. So again, this is a kind of basics or beginning in Schoolnet, but it does not have to be a focus of if you are a brand new teacher. If you are a brand new teacher, then welcome. And we look forward to working with you. But our goals today are pretty simple, just talking about how do we use Schoolnet, what information is available on your homepage, in the student's profile, how you can create and deliver those assessments, and how you view those test results. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a lot of information to try and fit into an hour. So Catherine and I are going to be rolling through these things, and we encourage you to reference this recording afterwards, this slide deck afterwards, and then of course, any questions that you have, we are happy to assist. But we're going to go ahead and get started with this information. I am going to go ahead and cut my camera off just to save a little bit of bandwidth there. All right. And first things up, accessing the platform. So to access Schoolnet, you are only able to get to the platform through NCA Cloud. So you're going to log into NCA Cloud and you will see at the bottom of your screen, because it is in alphabetical order, a red circle with a white house that says Schoolnet. If you do not see that icon, you want to make sure on the left-hand side of your NCA Cloud that it is not looking at your bookmark icons, but at all of them. So I'm going to actually pop into mine really quick just so you can see what I'm talking about here. So on the left-hand side, you want to make sure that you have all checked instead of just bookmarked if you do not see that Schoolnet icon. But that is going to be how you access the platform. And that is also how your students access the platform. All right, we do have a training site, but since we are in the school year, everyone should be able to access Schoolnet. But if for some reason, excuse me, if for some reason you cannot, on slide 8, we do have a link to the training site and a username and password that you are welcome to use if you wanted to be able to kind of get in there and click around where we are showing examples. But hopefully everyone can access in their live site. All right. So first thing up is the home page. And I know that, Catherine, you said you already had this up, but I don't want to ask you to automatically start sharing. So I'm going to log in.
Sorry, I was still letting
No,
people in.
I know you are letting people in. So yeah,
We're good attendance today, folks.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm logged into the training site just to be able to show you this information. But this is your homepage. This is where when you click on the icon, you are going to land every time. I do want to show one thing in the live site really quick because it is a little bit different from the training site. So if I were to log in as a teacher, I do want to point out this Schoolnet splash page. It's going to be at the top of your homepage, and it's got some bold red letters, but this is hopefully where you saw the webinars that we are hosting this year. But below the webinars, there is also a lot of good information. So you have some quick reference documents. We have our item bank counts in Schoolnet showing you how many total items we have per grade level and subject. We also have some support on technology enhanced items if you wanted to create your own questions, things like that. So that is all located in the splash page. and we constantly are putting updates here. So anytime you log on to Schoolnet, I do recommend checking out to see if there was any new information being shared. But the training site does not have one that looks as interesting. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. But on your homepage, there are a few areas that we wanted to point out. One is this choose a section widget. So anytime you are looking at your data or you are wanting to access your classroom profile for that section, you are going to want to look at this widget right here where you are choosing the section of the students you want to be looking at. So all of these courses are going to sync from Infinite Campus. So depending on what section you want to look at that time, you would just select it. So if I were to change this to math, then my classroom monitor, which is right below it, is going to change because this is going to reflect that section of students. So I would be able to see the most recent assessments. I'd be able to get some at a glance data on that assessment. And I can also click the drop down and change what assessment I want to view. So these are going to be able to show all of them, but the most recent assessment is what's going to show first. Okay, we are going to talk about your data reports in just a little bit, but this is one place that you can access them. But if I continue to scroll down, then I'm going to see my classroom profile. And this is going to lead us into the next topic we were going to talk about, which is student accommodations. So depending on what section you chose here, that's going to be the roster that is showing in your profile. Now, this is going to be a list of all of your students that are enrolled in that section. And anything that is blue in Schoolnet is a hyperlink. So notice all of our students are blue. And if I were to click on a student, that's going to load up their profile. So you have lots of tabs of information, all that's syncing from the SIS. So like you'll have their current schedule, you'll see their enrollment, their classroom tests, their benchmark tests. But what we wanted to point out in this introductory session today is this very last tab. It's Test Nav PNP, and that is where a student's accommodations are entered. So if you have students that have an IEP or a PEP, a 504, or any other documented accommodation that is needed for assessments, this is where you can turn them on. So in each student's profile, you would go to that last tab, and this is where you can select what type of accommodation the student needs. For text to speech, you can choose a default voice and speed, but there are several accommodations here, but it does have to be entered in the student's profile in order for the student to be able to see that accommodation. When we go through building an assessment, we're going to show you where it also has to be turned on in the assessment settings, but want to make sure you know it has to be in both places. So depending on your district, these might already be entered for you, but we do recommend checking your students' profiles just to make sure that they are not only receiving the appropriate accommodation, but that they are up to date, because we know that IEPs get reviewed yearly, and so accommodations might have changed. So you want to make sure that they are the most up-to-date accommodation for that student, okay? So any changes that you would make here, you would just want to make sure to click save, and then that would save those accommodations for that student for any future assessment. Okay. All right. Let me go back to the slide deck to make sure that I am staying on task with the slides. Perfect.
Creating
now
assessments.
we're up to creating. Awesome. Okay. Catherine, do you want to create one or you want me to do it? I'm fine with either one.
No, that's fine. I was
Either
just
way.
letting one more person in. I can jump there. Oh, one more. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. Let me grab my screen. I am in the training site, and I can share, right? Go ahead.
Yes, you should be able to. Would you mind making this one an ELA just so we can point out that grouping passages option?
Sure can. Okay. All right. So I am in the training site right now as a teacher. And what I like to do is there's two ways you can start it. You can start it from the item bank, or you can start it from the test. I'm going to start it from the item bank, and you'll see both pieces of it. So I go to assessment, items, rubrics, and passages, item banks. And I know this teacher happens to be a fourth grade teacher. So I am going to drop down here. I can use the key data systems item bank. I could use the DPI classroom bank. I am just going to click on the key data systems bank right here. I'm going to go up here to my filters, choose my subject, ELA. And oops, what did I do here? Oh, this is a math teacher. Oh my goodness. Let me start someplace else. Sorry about that, guys. Let me create a test. I'll start a different way, manual. And I'm gonna go here. And so create ELA. Sorry about that, folks. I'm gonna say fourth grade. This is my sample ELA. I'm choosing my standards document here. I don't need to pick a number of items, just leave it at one. As a classroom teacher, it always starts, you always default to my classroom. It defaults to ELA. If I just want to focus on reading or writing, I can switch that. I can go change things about the test. I don't usually change anything here until after if I need to. And then I'm going to click down here to the blue button, generate tests, and I would like to use items from an item bank. And then it's going to take me straight over to the item banks that I already have checked. So you can see some of these are coming from the classroom bank. But what Rebecca was referring to is you can see here that my subject is chosen English before I went in the other way. Grade 4. I can find and group items by passages. Otherwise, you're looking at individual items and you can't find a particular passage that you might like. So this is the best route for ELA. Click this button. And now, as a fourth grade teacher, I can see the first passage I have available is When Benjamin Franklin Was a Boy. I could read it. I could open it up. I see that there are 18 items linked to this passage. I have the option to select all items or choose the items based on the standard alignment here. If you hover over the standard NK, it'll pop up and you can see the entire description of the standard there. On the right, you can see the DOK level or the cognitive demand level of the items. You can scroll down more, collect a few more items. I'm just going to click a couple here. Once you've chosen what you wanted, you can add them to the test. I just want to show one feature here. If I close this up, it's going to take me right to, I can hide the questions and read through the passages first. So sometimes I like to read through the passages and kind of get an idea and then go back and pick my questions. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to choose 2 passages and I'll put 3 questions from each. So now I can see down here in the bottom left, very tiny, but I have 6 items selected. I can click here and add them to a test.
Hey, Catherine, I have a request that
Oh,
came
yes.
from the chat. Could you go, like you're going to add another item and show the filter? Someone was asking about changing or filtering by DOK level.
Yep. Okay. So let me just finish this thought here. You can see here that I have questions 1, 2, and 3. You could see there was Benjamin Franklin. If I get to question 4, it was the cheerful cricket one. Okay. So you can see all my questions are here on this page. If I wanted to, I could edit anything about them, anything about the passage once it comes into my test. It does not change the items in the bank. So per request, I'm going to go back and search some other information. I'm going to go down here and I see add item. I'm going to go back to the bank. It saves my choices, English, grade 4. I do have other filter options. I could choose by standard. So if I wanted to, let's say I just want reading and I want to focus on informational text, I would click the plus sign and I'm looking for those RI standards. So now I've set a standard filter here. I can also scroll farther down to the all filters, which will open up a new screen. You can see here the standards I've chosen. In the DPI banks, we only have multiple choice items. So there's not as many of these other items in that particular bank, while the KDS bank does have that. You could set the filter options here. You could set the, you could choose by passage type, informational, science, poetry, etc. You could pick the, if you knew a passage was in here and you knew one of the words in the title, you could search by keyword. Or if you're just looking for DOK levels, you can search by the level, cognitive demand, DOK, etc. So I'm just going to click one and apply and hope I get some results. Okay, I put a lot of filters in there. So I have this passage here, grasslands. It does have items that meet the standards that I've chosen. And I should be seeing that those items have a DOK level of 3, which is what I chose. And I could add a couple more items. Click the box next to the item I like, add it to the test. Now I have 8 items and 3 passages. I highly recommend at this point, if you think you have what you need for this test, you go up here to the top banner, you click the down arrow, preview and test nav, click preview test. It should open up in a new window. Rebecca, are you still seeing the pop-up window? Just checking.
I am.
Okay, good. Okay. Because I didn't render this test first, it'll take a couple minutes. I didn't publish it first. But just to let you know, once the test renders, this is what the student view would be like. Lets them know there are 8 questions. Start my test now. I can't recommend enough that you preview the test before you schedule it. Just scroll through a little bit, check out the questions, make sure it's what you're looking for. And when you're finished, you can click the red button up here. Just please note this calculate score. Students do not see that. It is only for you in the preview. So I can see calculate score. If I pick the first one, I get a 0. If I calculate, I don't know what the correct answer is here. I'm just kind of winging it. C, there you go. So you can check the answers if you like. If you're done with the preview, you could click the red circle or your X if you're using a PC, close it out, and you're back to your creation screen. If you're satisfied with all this information, you can leave the test. You can add tools. I know this is not a math test, but I just want to show this because if you were creating a math test for 4th graders, you might add a 4-function calculator and maybe a 1/4 inch ruler as part of the accommodations. If it were science, you might want to add, or social studies, you might want to upload a reference sheet here. You click it, and then you just choose a file from that you've saved previously. You can also If you want to name it so you can remember it later, or if you're sharing this test with others, you can add instructions here. Once you have that all complete, you can go up to return to test details. I want to point out a few other features there. Let's just say I don't like this question after I've read it. I want to get rid of it, or maybe I want to replace it. If I click the replace button, it's going to take me to the item bank, and it's going to find other items that have the same filters. Remember, I had 3 filters down here and this standard. While that would bring in another passage for ELA, in math, it would just replace the question, but in ELA, I'm going to replace it with another passage. So I'm just going to click add here to demonstrate, and now I have one more. I'm satisfied. I'm going to click return to test details, save my changes, and now I am ready to schedule this test. I'm going to pause there a minute, see if anyone has any questions.
So while this was a very quick way to show you how to search for questions for items, we do recommend going through and filtering by your standards when you're creating an assessment. You can filter by those item types, but just remember that the DPI Classroom Bank, like Catherine said, is only multiple choice, whereas the Key Data Systems Bank, that is where your technology enhanced items are going to live. So we definitely recommend you going in and trying to create your own assessment to really be able to get a grasp on those filters. Okay. But Catherine, I don't have any questions in the chat pertaining what you just went through with finding items and adding those.
Okay, then I'm going to continue with this test to show a few more features on this page and schedule it. And then hopefully, yeah, can I add a Desmos calculator? Let me go back to one of the items.
I was just about to respond to that in the chat.
Okay, but this is a good demonstration. Let's say I got to the screen and I realized I needed to fix something on a question or change something. I can either view from the item summary tab or the item details. The item summary just gives me multiple choice, the standard, etc. If I go to item details, I'm actually going to see the questions. But over to the right, next to every item, there is a drop down that says edit. Once the test is scheduled, it will no longer say edit. It will say modify. So just keep that in mind. But I'm going to click edit here. And then at the bottom, where you saw tools and manipulatives, there is a Desmos basic calculator, graphing calculator, and scientific calculator. However, these calculators that are embedded here are not North Carolina specific. Rebecca has put the North Carolina specific Desmos directions in the chat for all of you. Okay, hope that responds to your question there. I'm going to go back to this is called my test details page. I think I'm really ready this time. Okay, if I'm not, I can add items or edit them here. I can preview the test. I can go back. But in order to send this to my students so they can take this test, I need to schedule and assign. So most important, I'm going to click finalize. Okay. Schedule test. I have to put a date in. Remember, this is the training site, so disregard there's random dates in here. It's a scrambled site. Nothing really makes sense in it. But you would pick, we'll say today's date. Maybe your test ends in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Okay. Then you really don't need to do anything with you're not using Schoolnet. These are online tests. So I just leave these go. But here is the assignment piece, number 2. Now, remember I said I was a 4th grade teacher. As a teacher, I'm going to see, based on the subject and grade that I chose when creating this test, it's going to default to the one section of English language and literature grade 4 that I have or that I teach. I could quickly apply, click the apply default assignment, or if I'm not seeing my class there, I could click select assignment. And as a teacher, this particular teacher has computer science courses, dual language classes, etc. I could choose any of these if I like. Okay. Um, so just because I know I'm a teacher here, I know this is my ELA class, I'm going to click apply default assignment. Now I see that it's assigned to one section. My online passcode has been created. If your particular school is using Secure Tester and it has been installed on student devices, then you can use this button here. In this particular account, I had some defaults set up for tests. So as this teacher, it always says display, take a test widget, take display on the students take a test widget, but you could remove that in your site. You will have the option. This particular teacher in the training site is locked down. You could stop the test from being reviewed by students if you like. One feature couple features I do like is the restricted times. If you wanted to click this, you could set the time of day. Maybe ELA is second period and you only want the test open at that time. I do like to track and display the student response times. In the item analysis, this will give you how much time each student spent on each question. So if you have a happy little clicker that just goes through the test very quickly, this is a great way to track how fast they're answering the questions. There is the option to scramble the question order. However, for ELA, I highly recommend not using that feature because with the passages, if you scramble the questions, they might see passage 1 and then one question, passage 2, and then a next question, and then back to passage 1. I find that it's a little bit more difficult for students. Once you've chosen all of the features that you like here, and by the way, these little informational dots here, if you hover over them, if you're not sure what a choice is, you can hover over it and it will specifically explain what that feature is or does. Okay.
And Catherine, before you save and publish, can you show how to assign it to an individual student versus the entire section? That someone asked that in the chat. And if you can't, then I can show it from a test on my screen.
I think because I already put this in here, I'm not going to be able to get back to that right now.
Okay, no worries. When you're finished with this part, I'll show it.
Saw that on the last screen. And then someone is reminding me also in the chat that I did not show you how to put the text to speech in here. So let me get back to that and make sure I show you that feature. Back on the test detail page under test settings, there are accommodations here. So you saw I went to the item summary, then I went to item details. Now I'm in test settings, accommodations, edit. I can put the line magnifier, text to speech, English. I can enable text to speech for passages if I want. Now remember, even though I check all these boxes and save them, if these features have not been enabled in the student's PMP, which Rebecca showed you first, they're not going to show up for students. So I just want to clarify that. And then I might be able to grab that one individual assignment. Let me try that here. Edit. Ooh, let's try it. Okay, here you go. I got it. So let me go back and show you that. On the test detail page, even though I assigned it to one section, I can go back and edit it. And instead of assign to sections, I can assign to individual students. It's warning me it's going to change my assignment. Remember, these are scrambled students. Your students' names will show up here: Rebecca, Stokes, Catherine, Simone. Here, we're just going to see student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to assign it to these 4 students, add selected, done. And now I can see that this test has been assigned to 4 students. It's not ready yet. We did all of that. The last thing we need to do is publish to TestNav. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a minute. And Rebecca, is anything I missed before I click publish on this one, or should I just leave it?
Um, let's see. The only other thing that maybe we could talk about is those restrictions.
Okay,
I know it goes in
sure,
detail in the slide deck, but if we could just briefly talk about what those restrictions are.
sure. So same page, test detail under test setting. There are restrictions. Um, there are restrictions as a teacher. You only get to offer restrictions for parents and students. No restrictions means everything shows. Show correctness for student responses only means the students will see if they checked answer A, they will see whether or not A was correct or incorrect. They won't see what the correct answer is. Hide the correct answers. You could say before the end date or always, or put a date in there between such and such a dates. Um, it, in a classroom test, it doesn't really make sense to restrict access to item content because the students need to see the questions. So that one is really for district level tests for teachers before restrict access to test details, correctness, standards analysis. I would not restrict that because then you're going to limit what you see in your reporting. But if this is a test that's more high stakes for you and you don't want the children to review it afterwards, you can click hide it from the student's profile. If it's an exit ticket or a quiz, I would leave it at no restriction. Okay. All right. I think we got a couple more questions. That's a report question. Okay, and you answered that. Okay, so then the last thing to do, like I said, is you're going to publish to TestNav. That test will publish, and you have here the test ID for you to find it again. You have the passcode, which you're going to give to your students. I'm going to go back to my home screen. And I think that was my reading class, right? Yep. On my reading class, here in a choose a section, if I went to assessments, oh, there's the test that I just created, sample ELA, showing that it's not started yet. I can go to actions. I can download a PDF of the test. Since your students log in with SSO, NC Ed Cloud, you don't need to view the usernames, but one thing I would do is go to the Proctor dashboard. In the Proctor dashboard, I can see my passcode, my test name. I have 20 students available for this test. As the students log in, you're going to see a little pencil here show up in the device ID. And then as they start answering questions, this gray bar will get color coded. If they got a question right, it will be green. If they got it wrong, it will be red. If it's a two-part question, it will be blue. and grayed out because it won't separate them. Okay. It refreshes every couple of seconds, or you can force refresh it and move on from there. All right, I'm going to pause because I actually don't know where I am in the PowerPoint right now.
And I just put in the chat for everyone to refresh their slide deck because I did add a reference slide on slide 28 for those restrictions. But I
There we go.
think um, because of time, I know that we're not able to go into
No,
as detailed as we normally would. But everything is in there. I think the only thing that we haven't covered yet was
is
the
co-authoring.
uh-huh. And then the
Mhm.
Proctor dashboard, unless that's what you just covered while I was getting that slide.
Yes, I was. But
Okay,
let me
there
go
we go.
back to let me show co-authoring. So scenario for co-authoring is I am this fourth grade teacher and I want to create a test where I can share it with the other fourth grade teachers. I'm just going to use the ELA test I just created, but since this one's already scheduled, I'm going to make a quick copy of this one, and you can see it right here at the top, copy test. And I'm going to call this my co-author version. Okay. And if you, I can leave everything else the same here. My title, my subject, my grade, my standards document, etc. And I'm going to go down here to co-authoring at the very bottom, and I'm going to enable co-authoring. Now, I could either add someone specifically, start typing Rebecca's name, or I could use a co-author folder. Why do I like a co-author folder? Come on, screen. Co-author folders allow you to share with multiple teachers. Okay, so here you can see I have a bunch of them. I have this one called Sharing is Caring with this teacher for my folder. Rebecca and I have a separate presentation on co-authoring. But if I save to this folder, and I'll show you this folder in a minute, I'm creating the test, I'm going to generate it, and it's going to go right into my Sharing is Caring test.
Now,
And
while
once,
that's loading, please keep in mind, and you might not know this yet, but co-authoring in Schoolnet is not like sharing or co-authoring in Google. You cannot be in the test. Multiple people cannot be in the test at the same time. So just something to keep in mind.
correct. So I made a copy, I put it in this co-author folder, and right now you're going to see that it's locked for co-author edit. No one else that has access to the folder can get to it because I'm physically in the test. But what I can do is finish editing the test. And now, if you look over here on the left, scroll down under assessments, I have a test co-authoring section. So do you. Here is my Sharing is Caring folder. I'm going to click on this one to show you. I have 4 teachers sharing this folder with me, and I've already added 4 tests to this folder. So any one of these teachers, when they go to their co-author folder, they're going to see Sharing is Caring tests, and they will have access to these. What they can do, they can open this test. I'm going to just click this math one to demonstrate something different. And now, as this teacher, I can say, I can edit it. There's a warning here that says if I edit it, it will lock it from other users. But if I click edit, I can go down here. I can edit any of the items. I can add more items, etc. Return to test details when I'm finished. and then click Finish Editing so someone else can go to the test. Okay. Can you?
Oh, yep, I just answered.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Sorry.
And then let's
Okay.
see, after you edit, can you share the test? Each one gets a link. So you cannot do that. What you would want to do is each teacher would want to come into this folder and click. Do you mind clicking on a test in here, in this folder,
Sure.
Catherine? So let's just say this one. And each teacher would create a copy of the test because each teacher will have to schedule it and assign it to their sections. And since teachers do not share sections of students, if you were to share a test code without it being assigned, then you would not see the students' data of the unassigned students, if that makes sense. So each teacher in the co-author folder will need to make their own copy. Yes, absolutely. Each teacher makes a copy of the test, and then their students in their classes can take that assigned test.
Great questions. Thanks, everyone.
I know this is probably the most active webinar we've had. We love it. Bring on all the questions.
Yes. Okay. So that's test creation, editing, co-authoring. I know we have other detailed sessions where we get into a little bit more about creating your own items or the filters. No. Can a person who created the test see all of the scores? Only the person with the classroom test, only the teacher that scheduled the test can see the scores. If you have a co-teacher in your classroom, they can request access to the sections because I see here EC teacher co-author with agenda teachers. Yes, you can co-author, but whoever has the students within their class um, would be the person that schedules it for the students. And you saw when I was scheduling, you can't see, I can only see my classes of students. How can I create a folder for my test? Let me show you that. Under assessments, if you're going to co-author and you go to test co-authoring, up here in the top right, it says create new. You can either start a test here or you can do folder. I'm going to give it a name. This is going to be co-author sample. Probably have that a million times. And then I just start searching teachers' names because this is a scrambled site. I'm just going to hit teacher. And I'm going to hit teacher again and get a different teacher. And you can just keep by last name adding people to the folder until you're finished. If you just want them to view the test, you can click here. If you want them to be able to copy them out, you can just leave that blank. Once you're finished, hit save. And now I have a co-author sample folder with 4 users and no test yet. No problem.
Okay, and then I can take these other two. So you cannot sync the scores to Infinite Campus this year. That is something that we are hoping to have in the future, but you cannot currently do that. Answers that one. And then if you need school-wide data, you would need to request that you have either leadership role for Schoolnet in Infinite Campus. So it could be, they could give you a leadership role just for your school if you're going to need to be able to view all of your school-wide data. That is something that can be done, but you would need to request that from either your Schoolnet lead in your district or from your data manager. But that is something that is set in Infinite Campus, but it is possible. They just have to add that permission for you. Let's see the EC question. The section request.
Oh, let
Yes.
me show that. Yes. Okay. So on my home screen, Up here in the top right, there's a little like person icon. That is your user settings. If you click that and you go to My Account, go to Sections and Rosters, and I got a bunch of them here. But if I've done this a lot with this person. Normally, you would just see this little message if you haven't requested any, but you can click here. I know it's counterintuitive. If you know your partner teacher's last name, you can just start clicking, typing in the, oops, would help if I spelled teacher correctly. Or you can search by subject, grade. It's probably going to be testy to find with a last name in this site. But once I find the person's class that I want to have access to, I can click the button here. I click request sections again. Now, that's only part one. Rebecca, can you find the slide number for
I
that
am
one, maybe?
I am actually putting it in the chat right now.
Okay. So once the teacher has completed that action, someone with admin rights, and let me sign out and just show that quickly in case someone does on this call have admin rights. I'm going to log in with someone with leadership. There is a section, a widget called Approval Alerts. You do need to, as a leader, configure your alerts the first time for section assignments. Hit done. And then you will see here as the leadership, I need to approve these two section requests. I approve them, and then that teacher now has access.
And I just put those in the chat as well for anyone else that is interested in section request. Okay. So, oh, 9 minutes. Okay. Do you mind if I take over so I can try to show
All
these data
you. Go ahead.
reports?
Yep.
Okay. And then you just let me know if there's any questions. All right, so I apologize for the speed in which I'm going to have to cover this, but we do have a 1 hour session that we are solely dedicating to data reports. So while this is by no means going to show you all the ins and outs of the data reports, it will give you a glance at what you have access to. And then we encourage you to join us for our hour session where we dive into all of these data reports. So I'm in the training site and I'm on the home page. And if I scroll down, remember I showed you this classroom assessment monitor widget. So if I want to look at data for my math section, then I can make sure that that's the section that is chosen here. And my most recent assessment is what's going to show. And again, if I wanted to change assessments, I could do that in this drop down here. But on the right-hand side, this is a quick way to get to your data reports of that particular assessment. So if I click right here where it says test summary, that is going to open up my reporting dashboard, which is over here on the left-hand side. That's the other way I was going to show you to get here. And this is where all of your data reports are going to live. So the very first report, the default is a summary. This is a great at a glance. I just need to see really quick how my entire class is doing. So it's going to break down the scores into this color code here, and it'll show you how many students are in that score group, the percentage of your class. And if you scroll down, it will list all of your students out and give you the information of like the date and time they submitted, what their score was. Okay. Now there is an option here where you can compare by subgroup or standard, but for the standard, it's just going to give you your class's average score. So we're going to show another report that will break it down by student for you. But there is a way on this test summary to be able to see overall how your course is doing with that particular standard. There is an option to export your data. It's either going to say to PDF or Excel. It will vary from report to report, but you will see that little blue option there. And this student response report is only on the test summary. And what it does is it gives you multiple students per page. If you wanted to like cut the data into strips and be able to send it home with your students. I know elementary students sometimes will have like a Monday folder where paper copies of things are coming home. So this would be a great way to share how your students did on that particular assessment if you wanted to send it home. Okay. Let's see, test summary. No, that is just one report. The test summary is just one report. So the other tabs here are going to go over in more detail, more specific things about your data. One of my favorites is this standard analysis, which is the second tab. And what this does, oh, this test had a lot of standards, is it's going to break down all of the standards that you assessed, and it's going to color code them by how your entire section did. And if you hover over one of the bars, then it will read out and show the entire standard, and it'll tell you how many items you had linked to that standard and what the average score was. But if we scroll down, this is where you can see how your students performed per standard individually. So this is what I personally really love, because if I want to know how my students did on MD7, then I can click where it says average score, and it's going to sort my students for me. So I can automatically see my score groups of if I were doing intervention based off of a sole standard, then I already can see my groups. So I can see that I would want these 4 students together, these students together, and then I might be able to do an enrichment activity based off of the standard with these students. Yes, data can also, oh, that was you, Catherine. Data can also be accessed through the reporting dashboard, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. But we can sort through all of these standards that same way, and it's going to sort each column of how the students performed per standard. And right beside the standard, it'll show you here how many items you had on the test for that standard as well. Okay, so I really love this report. If I scroll back up, the student analysis really is just going to list out the student's ID number, if they are in a particular program like AIG or LEP, and then it's just going to say what their percentage was. So not the top report that I would go to personally. I prefer the standard analysis and then the item analysis, but it is a report available for you. So item analysis is kind of going to do the same thing that our standard analysis did, but this is going to break it down per question, which is very insightful, especially if you go right here where it says order by. It's going to default to item number, but I like to change it to standard because that's going to group the standards together. And like notice right here, oh, this is actually better. Look at this data right here. They are the same standard. This item, every single student got it correct. But this same question that aligns to the same standard, notice the difference in proficiency. So I'm going to want to check out this question to see, was it the question itself? Was there a vocabulary word that might have thrown my students off? Or did they really not understand this standard? So a great way to use this report is to see a trend of how the students were choosing their answers. So I was seeing a lot of A's there. But if I click where it says item 9, as long as this was not a restricted district test, oh yes, and it was not, then I would be able to read the question, see the answer choices, and see what the most common error was for, because this looks like it was a district assessment. So I can see the school percentage and I can see the district percentage as well. So this way I would be able to discuss this question with my students. We could talk about what this italicized bold about means and really break down the question to understand what their thinking was when they were answering this, what they were getting tripped up on, and then how we would be able to address this question if we saw it in the future. So just a great way to really have those conversations with your students based off of how they performed per question. And I see I'm already almost out of time. Okay, so standards mastery is going to show all of the standards that were on the assessment, and it's going to break the students up by score group. So if you clicked on any of these numbers, so again for MD7, if I were to click where it says number 5, there are my groups. It grouped it for me based off of the standard performance. And also, at the very end of this row, you will notice another number. So I'm going to stick with MD7 here, but this is going to show me how many times I've assessed that standard throughout the year. So it'll show me the date of the assessment, the title of the assessment as well. So that's just a really great feature about this
Rebecca,
report.
can you do me a
Yes,
favor? Can you just
absolutely.
show where the export button is there? Someone had a question and I answered it. So I just want
For,
to make sure.
yeah, for standards
Any
mastery.
report. So
Okay.
no, just she was asking about a spreadsheet. Maybe the one of the other ones that comes out in a spreadsheet.
Okay, let's see. So like for item analysis, if you look right here to the right, it's going to say export report. And if you do a drop down, you have the option of spreadsheet or PDF. So it just depends on the report, but some of them have both options available. So you would just select whichever one that you wanted. And I will see if it's going to load up for us. Yep. Let's see. I'm sure because I'm showing my screen, it is not. That's usually how it works, right?
Of course.
There we go. Oh, perfect. So this is what it would look like in a spreadsheet form. It'll show you all of that same information, but you can just export it into a spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about that. Trends is just comparing assessments. It's just going to go over the overall score. For the assessment, and then the score response distribution, you actually already saw that because that is a part of the item analysis. So this is the part where you can see that most common error and the percentages of your students, what they chose per question. So I think it was just so popular that they just pulled it out as its own report. But there is one other report. I'm so sorry that we are over time. So those of you that are able to hang with us, I appreciate it because I want to show you one other. I call it the secret report. If I am in my reporting dashboard, which is over here on the left-hand side, this is the other way that you can access your data. Beside your assessments, you're going to notice a checkbox. So we're going to pretend that this one is a pre-test and this one is a post-test. I have a feeling that is not even remotely the case. But if I check these two boxes, then you'll notice at the very bottom it says compare assessments. So I can click compare assessments and I can generate that report and it is going to compare those assessments for me. So I'd be able to see the students, how they performed on this imaginary pretest and how they performed on this imaginary post-test. So it's a great way to be able to measure growth across the total score of the student. And then you can add more assessments to this report. You can save this report. You can also do a standards comparison. It's not going to break it down per student, but it will break down each standard and you'd be able to see how your class did on average. And then you would actually go into the standards comparison to see each individual student. But another great way, especially if you're using this for a pre-test, post-test situation or a BOY, MOY, then you'd be able to really track how the students are growing across those standards. So, Okay. Like I said, that was a really, really fast way to show you these reports. That's the disadvantage of these being 1 hour webinars. So I do encourage you to join us for our hour-long session on these data reports. Um,
We had
but
one question in there. Can you clarify
yeah,
whether leadership role can see all data in my classroom test or only data from school or district level tests?
yeah, so a school level leadership can see all of the data for that school. So the classroom test and the school assessments, whereas someone with a district leadership role would be able to see the data for all schools with that school level assessment, and then they'd be able to break it down to the individual level of the My Classroom assessment as well. So district leadership can see all data, school leadership can only see all data, but for that particular school. And then, of course, a teacher level can only see the data for their classroom. So even if the teacher has made the assessment private, so there is not a like I know there is a My Classroom assessment, which means that other teachers cannot see that assessment. But as far as the data, you as the teacher would be able to see that data, and then a leadership role in your school would also be able to see that data. Okay. And just while we wait to see if there's some additional questions, it looks like we are going to be covering data reports in November. So we encourage you to join us. We do it in November because most people have already completed a few assessments and are able to have some data in there. If we did it at this point in the year, you might not have given an assessment yet. So we want to make sure that you have some data to be able to have to look through in that session. But we have multiple sessions offered this year. We would love to have you at all of these. Let's see, slide 53 are just some like our YouTube channel where we put all these recordings, our webinars, just some more frequently asked quick reference documents like our co-authoring. But other than the questions that are being put in the chat, that is all that we have for you today. Catherine, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that was good. I know we're short on time, folks. It's a lot to cover in these. So we hope you join us again for the next one.
Yes, yes, please, please. But we do have on slide 54 a feedback survey. I did put it in the chat as well. We would greatly appreciate your feedback, even if that feedback is to tell us that this was too much information in 1 hour, because we understand it is. But we would love to know any topics that you would like to see in the future, any additional questions you have, if there's anything that Catherine and I can do to make these sessions fit your needs better. Bring on the feedback. That we would love to know what your thoughts are, and we greatly appreciate all of you taking time out of your day to join us today, and look forward to seeing you at future sessions. But I'm going to hang out for a little bit for anyone that has questions coming through. But for everyone else, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you for staying 7 minutes over with us. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.